Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is James Bailey from SubQuery, and today I'm lucky enough to be joined by Sam Alamain from Imbue on
Hello.
this episode of SubQuery Sessions, or a customer interview series. We're going to talk about Imbue. Sam, give us an introduction. How did you get into crypto, by the way?
Hey, well, I've been an investor since 2015, right? So I've been early on, relatively early, but I didn't start building until 2020, late 2020. I was always building distributed systems at companies. Like I've worked at PlayStation, Discovery Channel, here in the UK, building distributed systems, and I was always really interested with the idea of crypto and having decentralized money, decentralized decision making, and that's how I kind of jumped into crypto. I joined Kylan because they were doing data. I said, well, I know data, I know the domain, and it's a good on ramp into this world where I can learn about how to build a blockchain, and that's what led me to Imbue.
And so, what is Imbue for those that don't know?
Yeah, so Imbue essentially is decentralized Kickstarter. We, at its core, where we allow anyone to submit an idea, to submit a concept, and the difference between us and Kickstarter, Indiegogo, GoFundMe, and all the launch pads is you have to define milestones. You have to define how you're going to use these funds that you're going to be given, right? So, for example, you, James, you could be like, I want to open up an e-commerce store which accepts crypto, and I need $100,000. You define milestones. You want milestone one, I'm going to launch a brochure website. I want 10%. I'm going to hire my team. Milestone two, I want 30%. I'm going to get the products, get the stock. I want 40%. So these milestones define your progress. And then you go up against other people who also want funding. And if you have defined a reward, if you define something that is makes your proposal attractive, you get funded, but you get funded according to your definition, so your milestones. So you get that 10% immediately. If you ask for 10% immediately, then people wait for your work, for you to do some work. Once you've done your work, you submit your milestone, and then only the people who funded you, only the people who have money at risk, really, vote on your progress. Do you think James said what he's going to do? And if it's a yes, you get that percentage. If it's a no, you get feedback as to no. So that way we ensure accountability by the blockchain. Everyone who has funded you, again, is on chain, how much they funded you, and thereby how much their vote is worth.
Okay, so you're kind of, in a way, trying to disrupt the VC landscape, or are you going to plan to
Exactly.
work with them in a way? Because they could obviously proxy a lot of their funds for Imbue.
Yes, exactly. They aren't directly a competitor. What's really interesting is what we built at its core is milestone-based democracy. So VCs could use us ourselves. We're chain agnostic. It doesn't matter where you do the work, right? It doesn't matter if you want to build something in real life. That we want to build. We want to bring real utility in this space. By real utility, I mean convincing someone who has no interest in Web3, like a farmer in Africa, has no interest in Web3 at all, and you were like, well, would you use this? And like, how does it help me? And you're able to explain to him that, look, this gives you an opportunity that just doesn't exist where you are. The bank won't lend you money, but there's a lot of money in crypto. There's a lot of money in Web3 who might want to support you in what you're doing. And this way, you're able to get that opportunity. And the next step is really there's so much interest from the Web2 world, right? Who or Web2 organizations, Web2 entities, Web2 governmental bodies to building in this space, in the Web3 space. But they lack the expertise, they lack the know-how, they don't even know where to start, right? And traditionally, what happens when you don't know where to start is you go to big consultancies. You go to EY, you go to Accenture, you go to Deloitte and say, look, this is our project. And you go through a tremendous amount of time, money, and effort to identify the right consultancy to build this out for you. With Imbue, those same entities can submit a brief, and then everyone around the world can submit a proposal and define their milestones. And then those entities can choose the most attractive proposal, knowing their funds are safe until progress, they're happy with that progress, and that progress is made. So we aren't just a decentralized Kickstarter, which is sometimes a word I use. It's essentially ensuring accountability on the blockchain for anything, any piece of work.
But in a way, you're building like a DAO-like organization,
Exactly.
right? There is a
Exactly.
network of people behind the scenes with capital that want to invest in productive
Exactly.
projects.
Endeavors,
And
yeah.
and so one thing we've been building at SubQuery, we've been building a grants program, which we're coming to our 6-month milestone. That's how long it's been going
Amazing.
for. Which time flies. Gee, wow!
Yeah.
Like 6 months
Yeah.
has gone
Time
like
flies in
that.
this space.
And we've been lucky to work with a lot of really good projects in this program. And one thing that we always try to focus on is capital is important. It kind of helps, like jet fuel for your rocket. But the BD support, the know-how, the advice, like the strategic advice, the connections that you can introduce people to, that also is invaluable in terms of
Yeah, it's
accelerating the
very valuable.
business. So is that something you're also trying to like take into
Yeah,
account
so
here? That
absolutely. So what we want to do with this DAO is bring in so many expertise to come in. We're tackling the first problem, which is finance. The first problem is you don't even have money to start off with, and that's great. We'll be able to get these communities to fund you. But say you build something that is necessarily as defined in the spec, or it does match what you said you're going to do, but it's not actually to the level that people are expecting. Then people can suggest ideas and say, hey, why don't you get this particular group of developers? Or why don't you make a partnership with this particular project? And then we create that connection between what you're building and what you want to build by getting people together. In general, crypto is filled with people who are really, really passionate. And we chose Polkadot because interoperability, because of the collaboration, is even pushed further than most other chains. So we want, because we're building it as a DAO, we're able to be part of this collaboration network. So people are like, actually, you know what? Why don't you collaborate with Remark, for example, because you want to build this NFT element. So I personally think that will end up being a much bigger of bigger impact than a traditional VC who might be limited in a particular scope, and obviously they're not going to be as diverse as a community of an ecosystem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as you said, right, any ideas, whether they're on chain or Web3 or not
Yeah,
Web3, can be funded. And I assume, anyone can play on the other side, right? Like I only have a few spare dot, but I can still pull that together with some really big names to make seed investments in the next big thing.
exactly,
And you're
exactly.
democratizing that access.
Exactly. That's exactly it. For a very long time, it's been gated communities. Not everyone can get into pre-sales. Not anyone can get into seed sales, private sales. You have to know people, and unfortunately, that goes against the entire concept of Web3 being open to everyone. Right? Why are we making these projects that are trying to build the next big open internet private? That doesn't make a lot of sense for us. So that's why we're democratizing it and giving people access. And that to me is what really got me into Web3. It's that open access for everyone, and it's a fairer system than what we have um, at the moment.
If there was a new project tomorrow that came to
Mhm.
Imbue and said, I want to get funded, what kind of project do you think that would look like?
So we've got like at least 60 or 70 projects now on the pipeline, right? So we're trying to we're forming a council in Imbue, 4 from the core team and 3 from the heroes actually. So these are like ambassadors in our group, but they're promoters of Imbue, and we have to work together to identify the projects that launch on Imbue, because the council then adds certain projects to the funding round. But I think one of the first projects we want to launch in Imbue is this form of integrity DAO, where you've got we have so many problems. You saw what happened in the market recently with Luna, and I kept asking myself, how do we stop that happening? How do we stop something like Luna happening in the future? And unfortunately, right now, it's about raising valid questions about sustainability, or how will this algorithmic stablecoin work if these certain scenarios happened, right? And right now, most social networks, you've got Twitter, Telegram, Reddit, YouTube, maybe, and Clubhouse. Also, is where most of the crypto community are, and Discord, obviously. But unfortunately, raising any form of questions in any of those channels can lead to a lot of infighting, because people are financially invested in this particular project, they don't like people questioning it. It feels like an attack. So Twitter and Telegram, Discord, they become more like echo chambers where you hear what you want to hear, and anyone who goes raises valid questions is automatically shut down. It's the loudest voice. This was something we discussed in our Twitter space with Betty from Akala. The loudest voice wins. And what I want to do with Imbue is I want to form a DAO called an integrity DAO, which gets funded via Imbue, but it's a bunch of researchers, developers, engineers, influencers, and forming teams of them. And they get funded via Imbue. And what happens is the people who fund them, they define projects. We say, well, these are the projects we're interested in. We want you to do a full-blown review of this project, raise all the questions that are valid, and then maybe host interviews with the projects, right? In the hopes of building a safer Web3. Maybe these projects look at the concerns that were raised and resolve them, and that's a win-win for everyone involved. But what's important is they are beholden to the people funding them, and we form teams. They're like community watchdogs, basically. They identify issues and the hopes of them getting resolved. And because they're independent, the community can read these reports without being unbiased and make an informed decision about whether or not they want to get involved with that particular project or that community, and even look at the response of the particular project on the report and whether that project sort of resolves some of these issues. That's really powerful, and we don't have that. Unfortunately, we don't have. The closest thing we have is influencers, and it's been well documented that how influencers sometimes shill and unfortunately harm their audience, and that's not sustainable either. We need a level of trust in this space, and how do you enforce trust is by ensuring accountability.
Yeah, and reputation is everything in the space, right? But it's good that you're thinking about how Imbue is going to incentivize people to do that hard work, that that due diligence on every new project that you bring in, to make sure that they're not going to be a rug pull, or They have a sustainable approach behind them. They have the team and the capability to achieve the vision and the goals they set forth. Because all that's critical.
The idea as well, right? And the idea as well, we have to actually do some due diligence of the idea. Eventually, the council is going to step away, and it becomes a democracy where people vote in projects. Like, it doesn't matter. You can create a meme coin, for example. We looked at the GM parachain. I think we discussed it recently. The joke parachain, and you might want to fund a project like that because you resonate with the concept. So we'll make it community voted, where people vote projects through. But until we have the foundations in place to ensure the community safety, that's where the council comes in. We're building these foundations in, like thresholds, for example. At the moment, the council needs to approve a milestone after votes, because what happens if you had 100 voters and you only got 3? 2 said yes, 1 said no. That's not really a correct vote. There's no supermajority there. So until we build out those foundations, the council will be involved. But I think we estimate that we're very close to launch now. We have our crowd loan live, but I think within the first year, I think we're going to kind of reduce the role of the council and move it towards democracy, very similar to what you see in Kusama and Polka Assembly.
But it's early days, right? And so you're currently got a crowd loan active, and you're working towards one of the slots on Kusama, right?
Yes, we've done something very, very different than virtually any other chain. We're on track to be the very first chain on Kusama that launches with no funding. Everything we do in Imbue has been community driven. We don't have any seed sales. We don't have any private sales. We don't have any angel investors. We as a team, we took the entirety of the risk from the community and said, look, we identify a problem in this space. We see it affecting every single person. And what we want to do is we want to build a solution to that problem, but we will not be using the same techniques that were very successful in the past, because this is how we protect our community. And we took the entirety of the risk. So if we fail, only the team fail, not the community and the team. And then after we build an MVP, we take it over to the community and say, does this add value? Do you like this? Should we launch? And we were supported by the Web3 Foundation. We received a grant. We successfully completed that grant. So by the time we went to the community with the testnet, we in the team were fairly confident that the community will approve, because the Web3 Foundation evaluated the code and ensured, it was delivering what was promised. And yeah, I expected 10, 5. Like when I was at Kylan, we had a testnet up and running, and Kylan has 10 times the community that Imbue has. And we had maybe 5 or 10 people join the testnet, less than 10. At Imbue, we had 400. So we were not ready for the scale and interest of that people will have in using the testnet. So we were overwhelmed, really, but it was successful. We now we're launched that crowd loan on Kusama, and what's really interesting is, you said, what is the first project to launch on Imbue? And Imbue is going to be the first project that launches on Imbue. We're doing the pre-sale of Imbue on Imbue itself. So then not only do we define milestones, define how we're going to protect people who participate in our sale, would be the first pre-sale in history that allows you to refund your money in the event that the team don't deliver, right? That's never been done before. Not only a pre-sale on post-launch, but a pre-sale where your funds are guaranteed because the team can't touch them until you vote their progress through. The level of protection we put in place is just unprecedented in our space.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, and it's very different from the other approaches that other teams take in the recent bull market, right? And I guess we are moving to a bear market right now, Sam. Like the markets are down, or all markets are down, not just crypto.
Yes.
We're talking to investors, and a lot of investors are starting to close their purse strings and be a bit more slow and conservative of putting money up. But you could provide that alternative for those teams that still want to build in that bear market, because a lot of builders.
Exactly. This is the perfect time to build. It's less distraction, less noise. It's the perfect time to build.
And so you could be a perfect opportunity to fill that void there that these big VCs have kind of left by blanketly saying, we're not
the time.
distributing
We aren't
cash.
allocating funds. Oh, we got that. We got that a lot, actually. And a lot of the VCs that we talked to, we told them, look, you're going to be able to invest in Imbue after launch, just like everyone else. And there was a lot of interest back in the bull market, but now they're like, oh, well, we're a bit unsure. I mean, you recently heard about that VC that there are rumors that they're getting insolvent. I think, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but very capital. Yes, they're a pretty big VC, and so if they're feeling it, you can be sure that so many others are, right? And that's why we got a lot of not right now, right? We like your idea, it's awesome, we've done our research, but not right now. And the community doesn't feel that way. The community might be willing to support projects they have, but what we're doing at Imbue is giving them a way of supporting those projects while ensuring their own safety in the event that those projects can't deliver. And I think that's really powerful. And that's how we move toward that mass adoption, by building a safer Web3.
But part of that will be building really great UIs so that
absolutely,
the average investor can see the projects, they can understand the background, the story, the goals, and they can also see, because I assume everything's on chain, right? The votes.
Yes, everything's on chain. And this is exactly where SubQuery comes in. It's about visualizing what's happening on chain. And visualizing what's happening on chain is normally done with tools. Like in IT, we've seen visualizations being built, dashboards being built to query. This is a well-defined standard in the IT space. But unfortunately, when it comes to querying stuff that is happening on chain, in most blockchains, that's not very easy because of the way the data is stored, the way it's retrieved. It's difficult, and that's where SubQuery comes in. It's really powerful. It's a really powerful technology to be able to look at what's happening on chain, index it, make it queryable to tools that everyone's familiar with. So you're able to visually represent the state on chain to someone and to projects to enable them to build all these powerful UIs and visualizations. And that, to me, takes it to another level, brings in the non-tech person, right? Polkadot.js, for example, extremely powerful UI, right? It is built for the super user. But you hear a lot of complaints or the term being, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. Look, all I want to know is how much of this particular coin do I have, or what happened last week. And this is very hard. And for a non-tech person, it can be daunting, right? So that's why we need to build UIs that are more user-friendly, while absolutely ensuring we have these powerful super user UIs for people who are slightly more tech savvy, because they are extremely powerful. They help us. I don't think we would be where we are today in the Polkadot ecosystem if we didn't have something like Polkadot.js. So we have to acknowledge the amount of help it introduced to get us here. But we absolutely need to build slightly easier alternatives to bring in the next wave of people coming into this ecosystem.
Yeah, and make it more accessible, right? Which is what you're trying to do with investment, is you're trying to make contributing capital and raising capital more accessible and transparent for these people.
Exactly.
And transparency is something that we need right now, especially as these big opaque entities are kind of falling over of the.
And you don't know what's happening. You don't know what's happening. And it goes against, and it's anathema to anything in Web3. It's amazing. We're all about transparency and on-chain. And you're like, okay, what are the big players doing on-chain? And you're like, well, that information isn't actually on-chain or off-chain. So that we need to build an alternative to that.
Yeah. Suddenly rumors swirl and everything changes.
Exactly that. It's exactly that.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Imbue is currently on a crowd loan. I think the best way to contribute goes to like Bifrost or
Bifrost or Polkadot.js. Any form of contribution, like Mexi, they exchange. You know, if you're there, you can also contribute from there as well. We want the help of the community to be the first chain to launch on Kusama with that crowdfunding. So now we're setting
history.
Exactly, we are setting history, and what's really interesting is we want to move those funds from the milestone 2 Imbue Enterprise, what I discussed earlier about people submitting briefs to allow people to send proposals against them. We're calling that Imbue Enterprise. Imagine how many treasuries, including the SubQuery grants, that want people to do work for them, but don't necessarily want to manage it in a way. So many treasuries in the space have the funds, but they don't have the expertise. They don't have the people. Allowing them an outlet to submit a brief is really powerful. That's milestone 2. And what we want to do with milestone 2 is move the funds to StateMine. StateMine is Kusama's custodial place. And no other chain so far, has made use of it in the intended purpose. We want to be the first chain that does that. We want to be the first chain, not only to say, look, Imbue shouldn't be holding these funds because we haven't earned them. We haven't built milestone 2. We're going to move them to be held in custody in StateMine. So no one has access to those funds until we deliver milestone 2 and we're able to point to the votes to say everyone who has funded us is happy with our second milestone. And that's really powerful. That's really, really powerful. But to do that, we need to win the crowd loan to be to make it parachain. So do get involved. Absolutely, any help you can to make this a reality is going to be much appreciated. We need the community's help to make this true.
Awesome. Well, Sam, thank you very much for joining us today and telling us all about Imbue. It's fascinating to talk about all these different approaches that, Web3 is always displaced centralized finance. It might displace the way you sell and share artwork around the world. And maybe soon it might displace how capital's raised.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely, that's what we're hoping.
One industry at a time.
Yeah.
But also, if you want to take part and you want to be a part of Imbue in terms of the other side, in terms of raising capital from it, now is the perfect time to build.
Absolutely.
And there are still a lot of us building out there. So, Sam, thank you very much for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, same to you. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.
Cheers, Sam.